Welcome to Inspiration Radio, Growth Principles for Humanity and Progress. Join us when we share information, wisdom, and ideas how to create an extraordinary future for us all. The future is open. We together decide what will be in it. Welcome to another episode of Inspiration Radio. Today my guest is once again Merle Levin. Last time we talked about slow life, or she recommended slow life, and I said, oh, how impressive that 1 million and more books of her were distributed or sold. So that is an interesting contradiction for at least my brain. And today, and that's why I don't want to talk too much now here in the beginning, it is about silence. But not just don't talk or shut up. The real power of silence, the power of living from the true self, and how to go there, and which fears or demon you might need to face to go there, to the real freedom, to the real feeling of oneness and I am enough. Listen, ideally also, open your heart, take it in, and use the recommendation, and then also really take your time to go to silence, to your true essence, the true essence who you really are. Live that, live it, live from there. You are enough. We are all unique, even in the oneness. Welcome back, Merle. I'm so happy that we can here connect again after the first talk we had. And there you talked about a kind of slow life. And my introduction is, wow, she talks about slow life and then just selling 1 million books. I thought I had a fast life, but never sold 1 million books. But afterwards, you then also said, an interesting topic is silence. And even maybe it sounds a little bit contrary that we talk about silence, but that is the topic for the day. And I want to really explore and understand more what your experience with silence is, how important it is. So first of all, what do you understand when you say the word silence?
Well, the first thing I just would like to correct that I didn't sell 1 million books, but 1 million books were distributed through various children's charity. Based on the little story of meditation for children. So
yes. Just in the talk before said, oh, so humble. I didn't want to say selling doesn't need to be over the counter, but 1 million book received somewhere else, and I think that is incredible.
Hopefully, it helped. It helped you. Silence. Well, I think I have always felt comfortable with silence. As a child, I think I spent a lot of time on my own in nature. I was very fortunate to live in a home with a very large garden, and I love to just be by myself. In nature, with my own thoughts, finding refuge in myself. When I was in my 40s, we were living in Canada. I had 2 children at university and a husband with a very successful career. And we ran a business in Toronto, a holistic health center that was also very successful. But for whatever reason, I hit a very deep and dark place inside myself. And
What do you mean by that?
I think a
Does
deep
it feel a kind of
depression.
depression or
You
meeting?
know, the winters, the Toronto winters are very long for an
No, yeah,
African
yeah.
like me. It was, the winters were very tough. And
Mm-hmm.
somehow, maybe the combination of menopause, change of life,
Mm-hmm.
deep, dark winter, something snapped.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I knew there was only one way for me to try and find my way out of this dark forest I found myself in. And that was to go up to, we had a little cabin
Mm-hmm.
in northern Ontario. And of course, everyone was shocked. They said, you cannot winter there alone. It's not insulated. It's not geared for winter. But I didn't really have a choice. I just knew I had to do that. So I got in my car and I drove up north and I scraped the door open and I hauled wood into the little cabin and I sat there for 3 months alone in silence. I did not listen to the radio. I didn't read books. I didn't listen to music. I just listened to the sound of silence. And I have no idea what prompted me to do that. I don't think I could do it today, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
It was very, very tough, very lonely.
Mm-hmm.
I began to believe that the reason I was there was because I'd been cast out of the world. I forgot that I had gone there by choice. You know, the mind is very powerful. And when you sit in that kind of crucible of silence, it's incredibly intense. And all the ghosts come rattling at the window panes.
Mm-hmm.
It was dark and gray and cold, and my vehicle got buried several times. I couldn't even find it under the snow. I was so unequipped for that kind of experience coming from South Africa, growing up in South Africa. Even though I had lived in Canada for a few years, I had never faced winter in that way. But there's something amazing about life that guardian angels kept showing up. There were a few neighboring farmers that kept an eye on me and used to just come and check that I was alive, under the excuse of, you know, I left something or I brought a load of wood, or Canadians are so private and
Mm-hmm.
sort of polite.
Oh, mm-hmm.
It used to amuse me. They'd knock on the door. Hello, I think I may have left something here. And
Oh, it
I
was
knew
your energy also, maybe. Mm-hmm.
something.
Yeah.
They took pity on this African woman sitting by herself. It was a really profound experience for me of the power of silence, that I'll talk a little more about what I discovered about that and what I learned about myself, really, through that process. And then, as life would have it, I found myself years later facilitating silent retreats at a monastery in Italy. And
Mm-hmm.
I did this twice a year for 20
Mm-hmm.
years.
Mm-hmm.
I co-facilitated with a colleague, a Norwegian colleague, and we would have groups of people, about 20, 25 people at a time, would come, leave their normal world and just come to this monastery, open to experience what silence has to offer. And I used to say to them, what took me 3 months to discover, you can do in a few days. Because when you surrender to the power of silence, it's a force. We have no idea how powerful it is. And I must say, I worry that children today have very little silence in their lives. Young people, old people, you know. Today, I could not take myself off for 3 months and be alone, because there's the mobile phone. People would be calling me, or there's internet, there's news, there's intrusion.
Yes, yeah.
I had this very fortunate opportunity where I could just sit. My husband, Jeff, was in Italy actually at the time, facilitating work there. He thought I had gone crazy. He didn't like the idea at all, but you know, there's nothing you could do when you're married to a bear. She is determined.
Yeah.
My children were concerned, but they knew that if ever I needed help, I would call on them. So they had to trust. They had no choice. And I had to trust. When I shut that door and entered that very cold, uninsulated cabin, I mean, I thought I was completely crazy. But, you know, when you are so desperate and it's such a level of sadness that you don't understand where it's coming from, there isn't much choice. For me, I had to just grab onto maybe a memory of a previous lifetime. I know the Buddhists sit in retreat in silence for years, sometime, and something about that has always interested me. So perhaps before I talk about some of the things that I learned about the power of
Before we go
silence.
deeper into it, also I have some questions regarding the word in order to check if I understand it right, or share what I feel. Because when we use the word silence, that is just, there is no noise now. Yeah, be silent. So it kind of, my dad said, be silent was a kind of shut up. Yeah, so don't disturb. And like also you mentioned, you went 2 times in a monastery and where you don't talk. So we can just from the noise level have silence. But what I understand is just also in the cabin shutting the door somehow to the outside, or what is the idea of not talking. It is somehow not really about silence. It is just more, okay, I shift my focus from focusing on the outside. I'm focusing more on the inside. And so in the, let's say, non-visible world or non-material world, and you were consciously, subconsciously, really searching or connecting what is we call maybe your true self. And somehow, when you also saw that there are demons or whatever, or shadows, or like I experienced also, I really had really kind of stressy situation with demons or whatever, feeling that was really noisy somehow inside. It was not really a moment of silence. So it is really connecting with something inside, what we maybe call the true self. Is it, you're nodding a little.
I think silence is not the absence of noise. It's not the absence of anything. It's very, very strong. It is, it has its own noise. It has its own sounds.
Yeah.
It has its own textures. It changes. It's like the weather. So silence, as we know it, is not speaking. But anyway, when you're by yourself, you know, you're just talking to yourself. That doesn't change because you happen to be in a cabin in Northern Ontario and there's no neighbors around you. That chatter still goes on.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't stop in any way. In fact, it intensifies because maybe it's along the lines of nature abhors a vacuum. And so you create a vacuum and something rushes to fill it. And it's a lot of noise, a lot of chatter, a lot of memory, a lot of self-hatred, a lot of self-recrimination, of blaming, of pain. They really, for me, I don't know. I listen to a lot of talks of people who live a contemplative life. You know, choose to live with others in silence and the kind of work one does in the company of others. I think that's a very interesting choice. I don't know what that is like, but from my own experience, I think the way the mind is designed, it never shuts up, actually. It's a monkey mind, you know, swing from trees to trees. I don't think people realize how healing silence is. People are afraid of silence.
Yes.
I had an American group here in South Africa a couple of months ago, and I was invited to run a few days of a retreat with them. And I thought in the midst of that retreat, we'd have a day of silence. And I invited them. I said, you know, you're in Africa, just land into the space with yourself in silence. They hated it. They were so afraid. Somebody said to me, when we sit and eat with others and we can't talk, I felt as if nobody liked me. I'd never thought about it in that way. So silence, it's frightening for people. I can understand that because it's intense. But actually, silence doesn't mean absence. It doesn't mean withdrawal. It means going towards something else.
Yeah, so the
It's like
truth. When we talk to
the channel.
the real truth, yeah.
Well, you look
Isn't
at
it the fear, you say the fear that people have? My experience is, yeah, first of all, when people in a workshop say, oh, or sometimes I would say a little bit provocative, I say, oh gosh, you know, I have another group who is not really thinking and not able to think. And then they're upset. And I says, okay, if you really can prove that you think, let's take 3 minutes and you think nothing. And we see who controls. Oh, something is always going on. And the fear is because on this level of existence, we identify us with a role, with something, and we're so trained of getting the recognition from other people. And then the moment I go in silence, I fear a kind of, death coming, because no recognition, nothing focus on the outside anymore. But it is, keeping up the illusion. And where you would suggesting go where the real life is.
I don't know. I really don't know what the state of silence is. I don't understand it. All I can say is from my experience of sitting in the soup of it for 3 months.
Yeah.
And facilitating over 20 years, twice a year, groups of people watching what silence does. It seems to massage the soul of hiding. So people discover things about themselves. Maybe they knew were there, but they never had the opportunity to experience. And it's almost like you have to go through the mud, the dross, the pain.
Yeah.
You really have to go through that. Now, some people go straight to the joy.
Yeah.
I've seen that too, but this is, you don't know why. You don't know what kind of work they've done on themselves in previous lifetimes, or what personality type they are. But I would say generally there is a layer of pain that we have to go through to face the void. And because we're so habituated, when something painful happens or a painful thought comes, to run from it, to distract, to have something to eat, something to drink, phone somebody, speak to somebody, turn on Netflix, do anything but face that void of loneliness. It is, for me anyway, it's very, very connected to a feeling of loneliness. Going
to go through the process. Afterwards, you don't feel lonely anymore.
What happened to me was I faced intense loneliness.
Yes.
Even though I'm in a happy marriage, I have family, I have children, I have a home, I have everything. You think, what I realized is that deep within there is a core of some unknowable place that is extremely lonely, feels unheard, unseen, unworthy, unlovable. It's so deep that and the only way I could find it was to sit and look and listen. Sit, for hours, praying, meditating, praying, asking for help, asking for direction. And then one day, it wasn't loneliness anymore. It was aloneness. And it had a completely different feel to it. But I had to, I often think of it like, there's that parable that Jesus spoke about, the eye of the needle, that you have to go through, like a camel going through the eye of a needle. That's what it felt like. And once I felt I'd gone through that eye of the needle, that something had peeled away in me so deeply that I was trim enough to go through.
Is this a kind of what a lot of people just say, letting go of things? You still were holding tight to something?
Yes, letting go. Just a letting go. It's actually letting go of memory.
All the beliefs who you are.
Ancient memories, ancestral memories. We carry a lot of baggage around with us. And we don't realize how we live with this overlay these coats we wear, you know, like wearing coats in the hot desert, and just let go, peel it off, just let go. Forgiveness, self-forgiveness, discovering the grace of God's love, whatever that means. Then the loneliness. I don't know loneliness any longer, because aloneness is such a joy. It's so rich for me. I love to be alone. And I love to be in silence. My granddaughter often says, Granny Merle, why don't you play music in your house, you know? I just love to be silent. I love to cook in silence. I love to walk in silence. I love to.
But you feel somehow connected with something, huh?
I have made friends with a quality of listening that is connected to silence. It's hard to explain what that is, because it's so simple. I wanted to read you a little poem.
Yeah. But just a question before. Is it the kind, because we all know we're talking about the oneness. So the moment you go out of the separation and going out of the separation and you can't be the separate ego anymore, then the fear comes and the extreme loneliness comes. And just if you go through it, you feel so much more connected, even if you can feel your individual self, but then you can't be alone anymore.
No.
Yeah. In German, I don't know in other languages, but in German language is interesting. Lonely is allein. And all together is all-eins. So it's somehow really connected, but just used different. Okay, then I get it. So, no,
I once heard a lecture by a teacher of mine named Uranda, and he entitled his lecture, Thank God for Loneliness.
Yes.
And
if you're through, you can accept it.
Thank God for it.
Yeah.
Because it's through loneliness that it's such a driving force.
Yes.
Self-discovery. I can't say we, I know I would never have gone places into myself if I had not experienced that intense loneliness.
I use partly the two examples, like if you have a ball and you dip it, or when it goes down and up, you don't see it really, but there must be a little second where it's totally still. Otherwise, it can't turn around. So if you're afraid for this stillness or silence, you can't go to the joy.
Yeah. I'm sure there's something in physics that explains the state. I understand very little of this intellectually, and I just go by feel and by personal experience. I worked with a colleague who was very intellectual and who had the brilliant mind to analyze processes, and I realized that I'm just pure experience. I cannot speak about anything unless I feel it in my bones.
And you did it 3 months in Canada, huh? You said.
3 months.
Because a lot of people talk about Jesus or the 40 days in the desert. And they also, a lot of people just talk about 40 days. That's a kind of minimum maybe you should go for.
I stayed as long as I needed to. Felt I needed to. Yeah, I had some very, very interesting experiences. Maybe I can tell you about them, but I thought I would read this little poem. It's very short, and it's a poem I used to read to our students when they came to the silent retreat. And it's written by a Buddhist Rinpoche called Nayushulken Rinpoche. Very simple, just a few lines. He says, rest in natural great peace. This exhausted mind, beaten helplessly by karma and neurotic thoughts, like the relentless fury of the pounding waves in the infinite ocean of samsara. Rest in natural great peace. And I think what I love about this poem is the emphasis that this state of peace is natural. This is our natural state, and just rest in it.
Yeah.
In whatever form that peace takes. I mean, we're talking
rest
about...
not in the meaning of be passive, so just be in the state of...
Come to rest. Maybe let your mind rest.
Mm-hmm.
Your whole being rest. Let go, surrender.
Yeah.
Just rest in this field of great peace that we are surrounded by. And it's hard to make a connection with that when you are being thrashed around in the infinite ocean of samsara, which is birth and death and rebirth and rebirth and rebirth and karma and memories and family patterns and working out old issues over and over. It's very hard to find rest when you're, he doesn't say when you're irritated by neurotic thoughts. He says when you're beaten helplessly.
Yeah.
The mind beats us.
Yeah.
And then, the Buddhists often speak about a wild elephant, the power of the mind. I don't know if you have been in the presence of elephants, and certainly I've been in the presence of a passive wild elephant, but their force, you can only begin to wonder how they use that image. The mind is so powerful, and we believe our thoughts.
That's the problem. Yes.
And this is the big issue.
Yeah.
So when you sit in silence, and I was sitting there thinking, the reason I'm here is because I've been cast out of the world. And then one day I thought, hang on a second, wasn't it my choice to come here?
Yeah.
I was just believing an old tape running around. So breaking these patterns is very, very difficult to do.
Yeah. Okay, therefore we have partly the brain that it just helps us to live automatically somehow, but if the brain is a boss, we are in deep trouble.
Excuse the truck going by. We are...
I don't hear it.
Faces busy. It's a busy road. It's actually a quiet country road, but occasionally a big truck goes by.
To rest in this state, is this for you the same say, okay, I stay in this energy, in this powerful energy, and from there I live the life here in this incarnation?
Yeah, I think it gives a compass. When I feel myself going in one direction, I just remember. It helps me. The propensity to depression has not left. The propensity to self-doubt and self-blame and all those things I went into that experience with have not left. they're part of my personality.
Oh, and I think
Trust.
it's also part of just being on this level. Dalai Lama says also, I still can experience fear or
Yeah.
whatever self-doubt, but just I handle it different. Yeah.
But it's just like somewhere in the dark room there is a handle on
Mm-hmm.
some, and if I grope around, sometimes I find it. And that handle of safety and security is what I connected to in that experience, and what I've seen my students discover in their process. And many of them, have written me long letters describing this amazing being they discovered within
Mm-hmm.
themselves that they had always known was there, but
Yeah,
had
it
never
is. It's
had the
never
time
gone.
and
Mm-hmm.
space. Yes. So I think, we don't have to extract ourselves from the world to discover this. The Buddhists speak about meditation on the cushion and meditation off the cushion.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the off the cushion practice when you're in the world
Mm-hmm.
is just as important.
Yeah.
So who is it? Carolyn Mace. I love it when she says we don't do our spiritual practice to the sounds of gongs and
Yeah,
the
and
view
it
of
can be
dolphins in the bay, We
bring
do
you
it in the
strong
most
memories. It's
difficult.
because only with a gong I can do it. Huh? Mm. Yeah.
Exactly. It's an excuse of the ego.
Yeah.
We do it actually in our most difficult circumstances, in our most difficult relationships, in the most saddest, deepest, sleepless nights. That's the opportunity
Yeah.
to do work.
Because the thing
And
is,
it never,
it's always the same. You need weights to build muscles. A lot of successful entrepreneurs say, I really learned through mistakes. And here is, can you say, a lot of people say, oh, we got the brain when we incarnate to forget. And that is a problem. We forgot who we truly are. And then because you have the fear because you don't remember, you don't have the resource point to feel what happened then after the 3 months, what you felt. But
yeah,
now, when you say, okay, I can on this level also have fear or crazy thoughts, but you have now the connection, the resource point. So you know what there's a such the different thing
yeah,
also social knowledge and knowing. Now you really know. Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm.
It's if you have tasted the sweetness
Mhm. Yeah.
of how powerful a force of love
Oh yeah.
we are surrounded by.
Mhm.
If you just have tasted it, it's
Mhm.
enough to last you forever. You don't have to keep going back to drink of it.
Yeah.
It's there, it's with you. It's like if you have known love or communion with a person or an animal or somewhere in nature, you can keep revisiting that.
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
becomes accessible to you. It's on your Wi-Fi
Mhm.
system. You just log into it. And I think this is the trick of the mind that feels I have to
Yeah.
get more, I have to go somewhere, I have to travel to find
Mhm.
this. I think travel is wonderful, but
No, have to.
really, there's nowhere to go.
Mhm.
There is nowhere to go. I'm just at a place now where I feel so blessed just to stay in one place.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. And
Yes.
did you experience a difference when you say the love an animal or love people? In my case, after I had this experience and the of I can't describe this feeling of love and the whatever level of non-duality up there, like a near-death experience. Afterwards, I was I feel the first time able to really love on this earthly level. Before I never really could do it.
Mm.
At least was a big difference for me afterwards.
Yeah.
Could you feel the difference as well? Or you always were before
No, I
better
think for
connected to it?
me, what happened when I understood the power of silence and the
Mm-hmm.
power of surrender, maybe of
Mm-hmm.
giving up control, of just, I'd been living like this, and then
Mm-hmm.
suddenly I just
Yeah.
opened. That changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
It first of all helped me realize that I had never fully trusted
Yeah.
anything.
Yes.
And so, of course, you only know when you test it out. So
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know if I could survive for 3 months in a cabin in the middle of winter.
Mm-hmm.
Tested it out. And what I discovered was I had people who looked out for me, and I was never hungry. I never froze. I
Mm-hmm.
managed,
Mm-hmm.
Life was simple, but
Yeah.
um, I had moments of really very funny things happen.
Mm.
And so you don't know this until you actually
Yes, if
face
you don't go there.
it.
Mhm. You used the word guardian angel, and it was more the relation. So someone from the Canadian nice people brought you food or whatever. But guardian angel is also what we say, or spiritual guides or something, someone not really here in the physical world.
Yes,
You
the
experience
feel.
this as well?
Yes,
Mm.
such support. I think that's what took me there. Some kind of field around me said, just
Mhm.
go,
Mhm.
drive. We will drive you there. Just get
Yes.
to
Mhm.
this cabin and
Mhm.
sit there, and you will be held. You will
Yes.
be okay.
And that is a kind of also what I experience for the big changes. Before I use more the willpower. If you want something, you need to do it. And after those process, knowing and knowing, stop wanting something, just allow them to guide you and then accept. And here comes the trust again, what you said, the real
Exactly.
trust. Mhm.
Would you like to hear a couple of little stories of
Yes. Yeah.
what happened to me in there?
Yeah.
So, one beautiful day, the sun came out. It
Hmm.
had been snowing a lot, and the cabin is on a lake, and the
Yeah.
lake's frozen solid. You
Hmm.
can drive
Hmm.
a truck
Hmm.
over the lake. It gets to minus 35 there.
Hmm.
Anyway, I decided I would go cross-country skiing across
Hmm.
the lake. And it was one of those days when I felt terribly, terribly lonely.
Hmm.
And I didn't know how to cope with it. So I thought, I think I'll just go for a ski across the lake.
Hmm.
So off I went, and I saw tracks that are skidoo. They
Hmm.
call them, it's like a motorbike on
Hmm. Hmm.
skis that go, people
Yes. Yeah.
um, go out on the lake, fishermen,
Hmm.
no, just people enjoy the winter. And I got into these tracks, and I got a beautiful rhythm happening in the
Hmm.
skiing. And it started getting a little bit dark. I thought I should make my way home, but yeah, it was so beautiful, and I was just enjoying being outside so much and the skiing. And then suddenly, and I kind of lost my bearings on the lake. It's a small lake, but it's
Hmm.
quite a large lake. You cannot actually ski across to the other
Hmm.
side, it was a few miles in each direction. Anyway, I suddenly saw smoke coming from a house
Hmm.
in the forest. And I didn't think anybody was there. I thought I was completely alone in this place. So I skied towards it, and as I came around a bend through the trees, I could see that there was smoke coming out of somebody's chimney. And I thought, oh my goodness, there's people here, there's a house, there's someone I can go and speak to. It looked so warm and so homely and so inviting, and I just skied towards it. And then I had a huge realization. It was my house.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had come to my own home and experienced what you touched on earlier, the lack of separation. That home that I thought belonged to a whole happy world of smiling people was my home. That was my resource.
Yeah.
It was me. I had like an out-of-body experience, and that was very, very powerful for me.
Yes, I believe, that change.
Yeah.
Whole perception.
See, perception, that's all it is, And then I had another very funny experience. One of my rules I set myself was no radio. And one morning I decided, because I only lived in one little room of the cabin near the fire, but one day I decided, I would love a hot bathtub in the bath, which was not really heated very much, minimum heat, just so the pipes didn't freeze, but not much else. Anyway, and it was quite a luxury and a lot of electricity and, expensive and so on to run a hot bath. But I just, for some reason, I felt I needed to do that. So I was lying in the bathtub and I suddenly thought, I should just switch on the radio. And so I turned the radio on to the national radio station in Canada is called the CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. It's a radio station that plays classical music, and there are no advertisements or anything. It's the more sort of serious station. Anyway, someone was reading a story of their life, and I lay in the bath. And at the end of the reading, it's an interesting story, the announcer came on and she said that this program is called First Person Singular. If you have an interesting story of your life, why don't you send it in to us? And then you can come in, and if you're chosen, you can read the story in your own voice. So anyway, I got out of the bath, and
appalling.
And I had a very interesting story that had happened a few years back with my son, where we were in a little store in the small town close to the cabin, and I discovered a book in the window of this shop. It was a book about a spiritual community we had lived on and that I had been a part of. And somehow the book was out of print and I'd lost my copy, and I was so excited to see this book. I asked the woman if she wouldn't mind giving it to me. I said, I'll buy it. And she was very put out because she had to climb into the window of her shop and disturb everything and get this book out from under a pile of books she had as a window dressing, where my son was trying on some sweatshirts and in the change room, and I sat and reading him some of the stories from this book of the spiritual community we had lived in. And then I got to the back, and to my absolute shock, I saw it was my book.
Wow.
And we were hundreds of miles away from this community. I don't know how this book arrived in this shop window and came to me on that day. So I decided to write a story up for the CBC. So I sat down, I just wrote it up and sent it off. It was the beginning of email. You had to plug your computer into a plug in the wall, and I didn't quite know how to do it. It was all very primitive, but I managed to do it and send off this little story. Anyway, a few days later, I got a call to say, we love your story. Won't you come in to the CBC in Toronto and read it in your voice? Now, I have not spoken to a single person for about 6 weeks. When I went shopping, I just, didn't, just would do minimal shopping in town for groceries, come home, sort of thing. That was the only time I ever saw people. Anyway, I had to scrape my car down. We had a huge snowfall the night before. And I drove, it was about 3 hours to Toronto. I arrived in Toronto. There was not a speck of snow there. Anyway, I pull into this parking lot near the CBC, downtown Toronto, with about over a foot of snow on the top of my car, more than a foot, several feet probably, what had survived the wind of the highway. I was in a big van, with a lot of snow on top. And the woman at the entrance to this car lot, she said, "Oh, where are you from?" I said, "South Africa."
Oh. Right.
She was obviously looking at the snow on my car, and I thought she was asking me about my accent, which is what was most common to me. I had such a laugh about that. Anyway, I went into the recording studio, took the elevator up, sat down, put on the big stuff, and read my story. Hardly spoke to anybody. Then went down, got into my car, and drove back to Siberia, thinking, oh my God, this is like, these parallel realities.
Yes. Yeah.
So I just drove straight home, got home late, and, back into the cabin, back into that other life again. Anyway, then I got a notification that they were going to broadcast this story nationally. Now, Canada is the largest country in the world. I don't know if you know. It's a huge country. Not a great amount of people live in it, but it's very large. So I sat in this cabin in the middle of nowhere, all by myself. Candles, I lit about 100 candles, listening to my voice broadcasting across the whole country. I thought, if we think that what we do doesn't have power, we affect, everything we do affects so many people. It was really just a surreal experience. I couldn't know what to think. All I know is they got hundreds of letters from people who had known me and people who had known the situation and people who were touched by the story. I don't know what, that they rebroadcasted it several times.
Wow.
And each time they did, I had that same ritual where I just lit candles and felt the emanation of truly what was being said through my words, that silence and rest and find the truth of who you are. And, I just thought I was able to ride on those sound waves and send something of the work that I was doing on myself to reach others in some way. It was
great.
Really extraordinary.
It's a powerful story in different levels. Yeah.
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 In German, we have a saying, in der Ruhe liegt die Kraft. So in the stillness or in the silence is the power. So it's just really, there is a real power. Yeah.
And the power is that you don't have to effort.
Yeah.
You don't have to make it happen. It has its own velocity.
Yeah.
It drives itself.
Yes.
All we have to do is trust enough.
Yeah.
I just got into a bathtub, but something guided me maybe, and then to switch on the radio and just exactly at that time. And, everything was like choreographed for me.
Yeah.
All I had to do was listen. And
not to interfere.
Not to interfere, not to say I have my rules, no baths, no radio, no. It was just, okay, why not? I felt moved to do something. And it sort of opened up into a place. Of course, it benefited me, but maybe it touched others through that experience. And that's really...
Not maybe. You got to let
us. We don't just work on ourselves for ourselves. We do it, to have benefit in some small way.
Yeah. It is thinking about waves, and this is very interesting, the ripple effect. I can share you a funny story. To preparing for this interview.
Yes.
But what could I ask? But I normally always with the trust what happens, and we go from there. But this time I went to ChatGPT. Yeah, and says, okay, what might the importance of silence can be? And then it got a full page where we all can think about personal well-being, communication and relationships, social dynamics, professional context. But it's all a little bit more, it's interesting stuff for a normal interview or whatever, but the power story you're telling, that really, it doesn't matter what it is, politics are, how can we encourage people to do this more? Because a lot of what I believe is the mess we see in the world, or the mess up of politicians, they have a life, they don't come to rest. If you're a politician, the press is chasing you, other parties, everything is chasing you. You can't connect. So what, like you also said, we worry about the kids today. What could be an advice, or what you suggest? Should everybody go 3 months in the Canadian hut or monastery?
I don't think you can. There is Wi-Fi in the wildest and most far-fetched places. That kind of solitude and possibility of stepping out the world. It's very difficult.
Yes.
And not everyone has to do it. I think we need to, with the kind of pace and intensity of life, as you said, the threat of war, the world just feels like it's going mad. So it's to find...
Do you think the world is going more mad, or this is just a historical development? A lot of people need to face it that they can make the next step.
I don't know. I really don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I just know, you know,
You're very consequent in being in silence. I don't need to know and need to want.
I just have to do
Impressive. Yeah, very
what
impressive.
I can in my
Mm,
small way. I guess
mm,
I don't know if that's
mm,
being an ostrich,
mm,
not facing
mm,
things, but I know for myself,
mm,
I just have to do the work on
mm.
myself.
Yeah,
Never ends.
yeah.
Being in silence, meditating, praying. I say mantras. I light a candle to every day. I get up at 4 and do my practice
Mm-hmm.
and dedicate myself to the small part I can play in the big picture. And I think what I learned from my time of silence at the cabin was that nothing is inconsequential. Everything has,
Consequent.
uh, you know, but I am just such a small part in such a big story that who knows? Who knows if
Who knows?
what
The book
else,
influenced
what
millions of people, not only those who got the book, but I guess there was always two, three, or four maybe reading it or whatever, or someone read it in front of a classroom. And like
always
in the
one child.
broadcast whole Canada um, is just showing also the power is which is really there if you yeah not just rest in silence, just rest in the power somehow. Yeah?
Mm.
Mhm. Very, very interesting, very thing. And impressive. I'm still too intellectual, yeah, and trying to understand. And it just, uh, I don't need to that my brain understands it. If my heart understands it, that's enough.
Yes,
Yeah.
enough. I think we are enough.
Mhm.
That's the mantra. I am
Mhm.
enough. Um, just go deeper and deeper and deeper.
Yes.
Discover what the soul is, what the purpose of this incarnation
Hmm.
is. What am I here to do? How can I fully express what I'm here to do? The indigenous
Yeah.
people say we bring our medicine. We bring our original medicine.
Yeah.
And if we do not express that medicine, then the world is forever deficient in that essence because no one else has that essence
Yeah.
your soul brings.
Yeah.
So my journey is to try to draw close to what that medicine is.
Hmm.
My main method is through writing, but of course there are a million methods.
Hmm.
I just find that when I write, I draw close to myself. When I write honestly, with the honest voice, really pare it down to, and that takes practice.
Yeah. 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 Just like you said, if you went through the 3 months and the demons and all these, what is it, mud went through,
Yeah.
then yeah, then you yeah live, but you need to practice it.
Yes.
Otherwise, it easily like muscles can go away if you're not using them. Yeah, I found it a very interesting sentence, and maybe it's a wonderful close for this uh, talk with you. And it says, um, "We are enough," and to really understand, um, going in this silence is maybe the only way to really experience the I amness and I am enough. Otherwise, I'm always stressed, like you said, also people fear the silence. and it's just the fear they need to do something. But if you're enough, there's nothing to do. We are not human doings, so the human beings, it's the main thing is to be.
Yes. And it doesn't mean just relaxing and eating chips, watching Netflix, you know.
No.
As I'm enough. Is that the I am enough means fully surrendering.
Yeah, you mentioned the essence, and like that is
drive.
the job is to live fully out the essence. Yeah.
Yes, it's we are in the field. Yeah. We are in natural great peace.
Yeah. It's
just open up to it. We have everything we need to support that.
It's all there. We live in a universe of abundance, even if we don't realize it. It is.
Yes, exactly.
It is what it is, says Love. And thank you, Merle, for sharing your wisdom, your insights. Is really, again, a wonderful, touching experience, and all the insights. And may everybody just who listen to it really start to connect and go to the silence and feel the I am enough and I amness. Thank you, Merle.
Thank you, Wolfgang. Really appreciate this time with you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being part of our journey towards a better planet we. For more information about Winspiration and ways to connect, visit us on the UKL's radio platform under the presenter section of Wolfgang Sonnenburg and explore Wolfgang's YouTube channel. Be Winspired.